Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Fishing System in Food Wars World. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 231, Adam Captured, Dragon King Diraus. Millions of special preparation ingredients, even Granny Setsuno couldn't handle this. After listening to Yuki's explanation and watching him already hard at work, Yusaku couldn't help but voice his amazement. Setsu was incredibly skilled, but millions of special preparation ingredients? That's beyond even her capabilities unless she knew the preparation methods from the start. But in this world, Yuki's probably the only one who can hear the voice of Acacia's full course. Jiro understood Setsuno's abilities perfectly. Give her time with special preparation ingredients and she could handle them, but the prerequisite was having that time and the numbers couldn't be overwhelming. Millions of special preparation ingredients, the sheer scale was staggering. Even though Jiro wasn't a professional chef, he knew crystal clear that Setsuno couldn't possibly handle all these ingredients in a short time frame. Hell, even with centuries at her disposal, she still couldn't manage it. So it all came down to Yuki. As time passed, the two watched Yuki's incredible speed. He wasn't preparing ingredients one at a time. He was processing tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of ingredients simultaneously. His hair could extend incredible distances now, spreading out in staggering numbers. Combined with his absolute control over his power, Yuki could simultaneously prepare hundreds of thousands of ingredients. And these were all special preparation ingredients. If they'd been ordinary ingredients, Yuki could easily handle millions at once without breaking a sweat. It didn't take long. The tens of millions of flowers were processed, their precious nectar extracted. Yuki then heated the collected liquid with a perfectly controlled flame and poured it over earth. Instantly, all the surrounding flowers withered. Now fully prepared, it detached itself from the stem, and Yuki caught it with a practiced ease. Earth's preparation was complete. Incredible, I haven't seen you for a while, and you've already grown to this level. Yusaku gave Yuki a thumbs up. The speed at which Yuki's strength and technique improved was terrifying, the most frightening existence Yusaku had ever witnessed. After Jiro's earlier explanation, Yusaku now understood just how powerful Yuki had become. Even Monkey King Bambina, one of the 8 kings, had been taken down by Yuki. When he'd first heard this news, Yusaku's brain had completely frozen. But he'd recovered now. Hearing Yusaku's words, Yuki smiled and shared some of the ingredient with him. Yusaku wasn't planning to leave immediately, he still needed to say goodbye to the natives. So Yuki and Jiro didn't waste time. After consuming earth and adapting to their explosive power increase, they opened the back channel and headed for the third continent. The third continent was extremely unique among the 8 continents. It was called the Cloud Continent because the entire landmass was composed of cloud layers. Not dark clouds like the 8th continent, but actual clouds forming the continent itself. The third continent was the bird's stronghold. The IGO's Biotope Zero was also located here, hidden within a massive cloud tree. However, Biotope Zero was currently empty. Everyone had been deployed worldwide to face the Gourmet Corp, and those who lost naturally died. The winners stayed at their posts, waiting for people from the human world to help capture the remaining ingredients. With Ichiria focused on stabilizing the human world, Biotope Zero had been left unguarded. Still, Biotope Zero was hidden within the cloud tree, making it nearly immune to raptor attacks. Yuki and Jiro weren't here for Biotope Zero, they were here for Adam. This must be the developmental fever bridge from Ichiria's intelligence reports. Looking at the bridge section barely visible through the cloud layers, Jiro spoke. Both he and Yuki were standing in midair. Flying was trivially easy for them. They could walk on air itself. They could also stand on calorie equipment to fly, making the developmental fever bridge completely unnecessary. This structure had been built by the Red Nitro race, though not willingly. They'd been enslaved by the blue nitro at the time. The blue nitro had forced these red nitro to build the developmental fever bridge to facilitate capturing and preparing Adam. Finding this bridge led directly to Adam's location. For those lacking strength, this bridge was certainly the most convenient route. After all, beneath these cloud seas lay massive amounts of toxic substances, falling in basically meant death. As for Adam, its capture difficulty ranks second to last, with Pear in last place. Of course, that was the original Pear. The Pear inside the Monkey King ranked in the top 3 for capture difficulty. An ingredient like Adam was easy to capture because it was right there. Adam erupted from massive volcanoes, these magma-like substances shooting directly into space. In space, it would absorb a vast amounts of toxins before returning to Earth's surface. So capturing it was simple, the ingredient was right in front of you, easily obtainable. But Adam's real challenge lay in its preparation. In terms of preparation difficulty, Adam ranked third. First was God, second was another, third was Adam. Adam's preparation required attention to poison transformations. The toxins in it weren't static, they changed constantly, never repeating a previous poison. Under these conditions, chefs had to complete the preparation before the poison changed. The difficulty was astronomical, each poison existed for mere instants. Chefs needed to instantly identify the specific poison and immediately create an antidote. Otherwise, the poison would transform, forcing them to start over. Adam's poisons were absolutely terrifying, not something just anyone could neutralize. Fast transformation rates and extreme toxicity pushed Adam's preparation difficulty to incredible heights. In the original story, the capture and preparation team were both poison experts, Poison Man Coco and poison cuisine specialist Tylan. As for Yuki, while he wasn't a poison expert, his detoxification abilities were incredibly powerful. He'd copied Dawn Slime's cells, which could directly devour Adam's toxins. So now Yuki could even drink Adam straight. Of course, that wasn't the best solution. Using that method meant only he could eat it, others couldn't. So Yuki had to properly remove the toxins. The simplest method? Use the mobile kitchen. Using the mobile kitchen combined with his enhanced vision for observation. For others, the mobile kitchen wouldn't help. The mobile kitchen created a space similar to the world of souls, where time flowed at the same rate. Using this method. Person in the mobile kitchen with ingredients outside, or ingredients in the mobile kitchen with person outside, guaranteed enough observation time. But it was limited to observation only. With space separated, aside from eyes, the other 5 senses were basically useless. To make contact required both in the same space, but once in the same space, the time flow advantage vanished. Under those conditions, Adam's poison transformation speed would return to normal, negating the mobile kitchen's effect. In the original story, Coco probably relied on his inner poison devil. Everyone had their own methods. Yuki now used the mobile kitchen to separate them, observing with his eyes. His eyes were far superior to Coco's now, not only seeing electromagnetic waves but countless subtle details. Through visual observation, Yuki quickly discovered Adam's patterns and gradually understood the poison transformations. After identifying the poisons, Yuki rapidly created antidotes. And before Adam could transform again, he directly neutralized the poison. With that, Adam, one of the 8 ingredients, was secured. Complete, we've got 6 ingredients now. Next, we just need to capture the final center. Yuki announced. As for God, they'd need to wait for the gourmet solar eclipse. Without realizing it, we've collected 6 ingredients. This efficiency, only you could pull it off. Jiro said with a smile. Who could imagine Pear, Adam, and Earth, 3 legendary ingredients captured on the same day by the same person? And at this rate, after reaching Area 0, Yuki would probably capture Center quickly too. That would be 4 ingredients in one day, absolutely terrifying to think about. Next is Center, but if I remember correctly, Center's located in Area 0. Getting into Area 0 isn't exactly easy. Yuki said. While tunneling from below could reach Area 0, that method wouldn't be recognized by Earth itself. So even entering Area Zero that way would be useless. They could only enter through Area Zero's proper entrance. Otherwise, if Earth didn't approve, you'd never get in. With Earth's approval, you could enter from anywhere. That's right. The gatekeeper at Area Zero's entrance is Dragon King Diraus. Of course, that's only difficult for others. For you, Dragon King Diraus can't stop you, Jiro said. He didn't know Yuki's exact strength level, but the current Yuki already put considerable pressure on him. Hence, Diraus facing Yuki would be serving himself on a platter. Chapter 232, Serial 8 King's Killer, Food Heaven Area Zero, Killing the Dragon King, an Ocean of Center. They'd already killed the Monkey King, killing a Dragon King didn't seem like a big deal either. Thus, the two headed for the first continent. Area Zero's entrance was located on the first continent, but before heading to Area Zero's entrance, Yuki and Jiro made another stop. So this is Cure Water. Worthy of healing any injury. The life energy is incredibly strong. Looking at the Cure Water before them, Yuki could clearly sense its life energy. Cure Water originated from the Dragon Clan's territory. The Dragon King Diraus was the only one of its kind, but Diraus had a clan. While these individuals couldn't compare to Dragon King Diraus, their strength was formidable. In the original story, they had beaten Midora to near death. Though Midora wasn't particularly strong then, it showed how powerful these Dragon Clan members were. But for current Yuki and Jiro, these Dragon Clan members were nothing. The two had come straight here, defeating all the Dragon Clan beasts along the way. Yuki had even captured several to eat later. As for Cure Water, its effects were incredible but quantities were extremely limited. No wonder the original story only prepared tiny amounts for everyone. Even taking all the Cure Water here wouldn't fill 20 of those bottles from the original story. After Yuki took the Cure Water, they left. This place would produce more Cure Water anyway, so Yuki took it all. Jiro said nothing about this. Cure Water would just sit there otherwise, taking it was fine. After securing the Cure Water, the two arrived at Area Zero's entrance. Dragon King Diraus's massive body blocked the entrance completely. Meaning, without defeating this creature, entering Area Zero was impossible. The moment Diraus spotted them, it let out a furious. Not because they approached, but because they carried the scent of Dragon Clan members. And that scent reeked of blood. Under these circumstances, Diraus knew exactly what these two had done at his clan's nest. The Dragon King was furious. When had its clan become prey for others to hunt and slaughter? Though Diraus normally didn't manage clan affairs, that didn't mean he didn't care about his clan. So now Diraus attacked directly. He didn't care who these two were or how strong they might be, he only knew they'd attacked his clan, so he'd kill them. Diraus was powerful, but against Yuki and Jiro, dealing with him was effortless, ridiculously easy, even. Both Yuki and Jiro were stat monsters now. Multiple gourmet cell activations had made their strength absolutely terrifying, so Diraus stood no chance. Watching Diraus charge forward, Yuki threw a devastating punch. Instantly, Diraus flew backward at several times the speed he'd charged. What a hot-headed bastard. After blasting Diraus away, Yuki didn't particularly blame the Dragon King. If another race had slaughtered humans right in front of him, Yuki wouldn't have let them walk away either. So Diraus's rage made perfect sense. But the power gap was undeniable, this world had always operated on the law of survival of the fittest. Yuki had no intention of killing Diraus outright. Now it all depended on what the Dragon King decided. If he backed off peacefully, Yuki wouldn't pursue it. But if he kept charging forward, then Yuki would end his life right here. The 8 kings were always stubborn as hell. Though he had been sent flying, and the blow had clearly injured him, Diraus wouldn't retreat. Even in the face of certain death. Sometimes that stubbornness was a virtue. Other times, it was a death sentence. Diraus knew perfectly well he couldn't match Yuki, but he wouldn't surrender. His massive jaws opened wide, energy gathering in his maw. This was Diraus's ultimate technique. In the original story, Diraus had used this move against Acacia, blasting straight through Earth and obliterating dozens of asteroids in the process. The attack packed devastating power, but it had one glaring weakness: it required charging time. Not as long as those ridiculously drawn-out ultimate moves from other worlds, but still. In the world of Toriko, even a 10,000th of a second could decide victory. This attack needed several seconds to charge. Without allies to pin down the enemy, it would almost never connect. Watching the dragon charge his attack, Yuki didn't get cocky. While his current strength could probably tank the blast without serious damage, he wasn't some masochist looking for punishment. So while the attack was still charging, Yuki had already appeared before Diraus. Flames erupted from his hands, instantly engulfing the Dragon King. Yuki's inferno had grown alongside his own power. Its intensity was so overwhelming that even Diraus couldn't withstand it. The dragon was incinerated almost instantly. That's right, practically no struggle at all. The power disparity was so vast that Diraus died in a single burst of flame. To prevent the body from being completely consumed, Yuki recalled his flames the instant Diraus died. After all, Diraus's meat was an excellent ingredient material. Following Monkey King Bambina, another 8 King, Dragon King Diraus, had fallen to Yuki's hands. Diraus had died even faster, without even a chance to struggle. "You're becoming a serial 8 King killer, kid." Watching Yuki take down another 8 King, Jiro commented with exasperation. "It's not like they're invincible. He was in my way. Now, we can enter Area 0. Yuki looked at Area 0 entrance before them, directly forming a protective layer of calories around his body. Jiro did the same. The energy they contained was so immense that the corrosive environment of the Area 0 was no threat. If Aimara's bacteria could withstand it, their calorie armor certainly could. The two entered Area 0. The continent was wrapped in peculiar liquids, the fundamental source that nurtured countless forms of life. Center was here too. Upon entering, Yuki and Jiro witnessed the incredible sight of countless ingredients constantly being born and dissolved. Clearly, these dissolving ingredients were failures. Only successful ingredients would erupt to the surface world. As they watched this extraordinary scene, liquid suddenly surged up from the ground. This liquid separated from Area 0's internal fluids like oil from water, creating a bizarre visual effect. The instant he saw this liquid, Yuki knew this was Center. Obviously, his food luck had caused Center to appear upon their arrival. In the original story, Zhongnha's food luck had made Center appear directly in the surface world. Not because Zhongnha's food luck was necessarily stronger than Yuki's, but because Earth itself had been helping them. Only Center plus Midora could restore Earth to normal, so Earth had leveraged Zhongnha's food luck. Plus, Earth had already been riddled with countless wounds by then, allowing Center to smoothly emerge on the surface. But things were different now. Earth wasn't the battered, hole-riddled planet from the later timeline, it was still intact. So Center naturally wouldn't appear directly on the surface. But Center existed in vast quantities throughout Area 0. When Yuki arrived, his food luck made Center appear right before him. "I didn't expect Center to come so easily. Looks like Earth doesn't want me lingering in Area 0 either." Yuki sensed Earth's intent. This probably reflected Earth's will. After all, this was where all ingredients were born. Yuki staying here longer wouldn't be beneficial. Actually, Yuki had no interest in this place anyway. The most precious ingredient here was Center. Once he had Center, he couldn't care less about the other ingredients. Countless ingredients here were still prototypes and failures. Only rare successes would be released to the surface world, and those weren't necessarily high level. So Yuki naturally had zero interest. As for the captured Center, it couldn't be eaten yet. Center had to be consumed after God, so this ingredient would need to be stored temporarily. With that, 7 of the Acacia's 8 ingredients had been captured by Yuki, along with killing 2 8 Kings as a bonus. After wrapping everything up, Yuki and Jiro returned to the human world together. The gourmet world journey was temporarily concluded. They could explore more later. After all, the gourmet world had other ingredients beyond the main 8. But for Yuki, other ingredients held less appeal now. They were just delicacies to sample. Yuki's cell level had already reached frightening heights. Still, as time passed, while Yuki's cell level couldn't increase further, his combat power would continue growing. After all, he'd already found the path forward. After returning to the human world, Yuki and Jiro distributed portions of the ingredients to Granny Setsuno and the IGO. Captured already? That's incredibly impressive. Ichiryu looked at the ingredients before him with amazement. Back then, Frozy and Acacia had been gone for quite a long time. Yuki's strength was truly remarkable. As for the people Yuki had rescued, they hadn't returned to the human world yet. Their speed couldn't compare to Yuki and Jiro's. 8 ingredients, now only the unborn god remains. Also, Center needs to be eaten after God. Yuki spoke up. While he assumed President Ichiryu knew this, he still needed to remind him. Otherwise, what if someone ate it? That wouldn't end well. Other ingredients could be eaten out of order, but mixing up the last 2 would cause serious problems, potentially even creating a situation like the Hex food world. After all, the final ingredient was what truly manifested the appetite demon. Without God, the appetite demon might get stuck halfway between emerging and not emerging. Point being, scrambling these 2 ingredients would be incredibly troublesome. God, we'll need to wait for the gourmet solar eclipse. Chapter 233 Food Wars World, Gourmet Cell Fusion Success. Speaking of God, Ichiryu fell into reminiscence. While Acacia hadn't started his plan at the gourmet solar eclipse, he'd planned it long before all the changes had begun from that eclipse. Frozy had walked out with Acacia that time, but when they returned, Acacia was carrying Frozy's body. Afterward, Frozy's body had fallen into an extremely weakened state. Her condition was beyond what even the cure water could fix. Otherwise, everyone would have fetched cure water long ago. But all they could do was watch her suffer. Only Midora hadn't understood this. Of course, you couldn't blame Midora, concern Cloud's judgment. Midora hadn't realized this point, and the others bore responsibility too for not telling him. Not knowing the truth, Midora had been manipulated by that bastard Acacia. But Acacia's plan had developed a fatal flaw. Frozy, a crucial element, had chosen to simply die. Acacia hadn't anticipated that. You could say that to execute his plan, Acacia had betrayed his children, his wife, his students, and everyone on Earth. The only one he'd been true to was Neo. In a way, Acacia was the most selfish man who had ever lived. God isn't the key issue. With Yuki's abilities, preparing God will be easy. The real concern is Acacia. When the time comes, will you really be able to strike him down? Don Slime spoke from the side. He'd been resurrected and stayed with Ichiryu. He knew the key wasn't God. It was powerful, but not worth this level of concern. Besides, Yuki knew how to prepare God. The real concern should be Acacia. Back then, Ichiryu couldn't bring himself to strike Acacia down. What about this time? If it's truly as you say, then I'll send Master Acacia on his way. When Ichiryu spoke these words, his tone was completely calm, without any fluctuation. It gave an impression of casual indifference, but Yuki knew clearly when Ichiryu said this, it meant he'd made his decision. Between Earth and Acacia, he would naturally choose Earth, choose to stand with humanity. So when the time came, no matter how difficult, he would act against Acacia. Though without Don Slime's assistance, killing Acacia wouldn't be easy for Ichiryu. When the time comes, President Ichiryu won't need to act. I believe both Midora and Jiro would be more than willing to end this. Yuki shook his head. They wouldn't force Ichiryu to make that choice. After all, Ichiryu definitely wouldn't be the one acting. Midora was waiting to personally finish Acacia. Don't be fooled by the original story where Midora seemed to forgive Acacia. That was plot necessity. Given Midora's personality, forgiving Acacia was impossible. Because Acacia's entire plan and Frozy's situation were completely separate matters. That's true. That kid Midora will definitely charge in first. With his strength, after eating 6 ingredients, Acacia won't have an easy time. Don Slime knew Medora's strength, having fought him before. Once Medora struck in rage, Acacia would have his hands full. Since the ingredients are delivered, I'll take my leave. Acacia's matter was Ichiryo's family business. Yuki would at most get involved with Neo. Better to let them discuss it themselves. Yuki had his own research to conduct. After Yuki left, the door opened again. This time, Medora entered. He'd abandoned the Gourmet Corp and chosen to come to the IGO. He naturally knew about Yuki's arrival but had no intention of meeting him. There was no need for Ichiryo and the others, he already knew what kind of person Yuki was. Someone like Yuki definitely wouldn't show him a friendly face. Medora knew perfectly well what he'd done to the human world. So he deliberately avoided meeting Yuki. You heard what was just said. The ingredients are all here, 6 of them, enough to boost your strength. When the time comes, everything will need your resolution. Though Ichiryo didn't want his youngest brother handling this, he knew clearly this matter required Medora to make the final decision. After all, Medora had the deepest obsession with Frozy. So Acacia's matter had to be Medora's decision. If Jiro were here, he'd make the same choice. Because Jiro also cared about his youngest brother. Having these 2 older brothers was truly enough for Medora. His childhood may have been tragic, but in the end, he had found a good family. With the exception of Acacia, of course. Yuki had accomplished nearly everything necessary in the world of Toriko. Now, his focus shifted entirely to gourmet cell fusion research. After all, countless people close to him still lacked gourmet cells. Yuki hadn't forgotten those waiting in the Food Wars world. He needed to develop a method guaranteeing successful gourmet cell integration. For this research, Yuki went directly to Honey Prison, where conducting experiments removed countless complications. Over the following period, Yuki continuously attempted gourmet cell integration into human subjects. Nearly all attempts ended in failure. An entire month passed. Though his various abilities had significantly improved the fusion success rate, failures still occurred. Yuki's goal wasn't occasional success, he demanded absolute certainty. The success rate had to reach 100%. Otherwise, he'd never risk fusing gourmet cells into Megumi and the others. However, fusion in other worlds revealed intriguing phenomena. Post-fusion bodies didn't undergo the grotesque mutations common in the Toriko world. The Hex Food World's inhabitants mutated because appetite demon characteristics manifested in their bodies, transforming them into bizarre, misshapen creatures. But outside the Toriko world, appetite demons simply didn't exist. They couldn't cross dimensional boundaries to possess others, so physical mutations were significantly reduced. Still, some changes remained. These mutations stemmed from the gourmet cells themselves, like transforming someone into a mini giant, their height shooting past 3 meters. Yuki had no intention of letting his friends turn into titans. While knocking could suppress these changes, he wouldn't resort to half measures. As long as mutations and failures existed, he absolutely wouldn't use this method. 1 month seemed brief, but with Yuki constantly operating the mobile kitchen for research, the time invested was astronomical. Gourmet cell fusion was undeniably difficult, no wonder the blue nitro had failed despite centuries of attempts. Still, Yuki made progress. Success rates kept climbing, any improvement was positive. After another month, Yuki looked at his test subjects with satisfaction. His gourmet cell fusion had finally achieved 100% success. After countless trials, Yuki had developed a failsafe gourmet cell extraction technology. He could now directly extract gourmet cells from mutated or failed subjects. Once the gourmet cells were removed, fusion failures wouldn't die, and mutated bodies would return to normal. With this technique as insurance, Yuki no longer worried about potential problems during fusion. Though he believed the success rate had reached 100%, having backup plans never hurt. After developing these techniques, Yuki headed to the Food Wars world. Having achieved his goal, it was time to fuse gourmet cells into his friends. Of course, Yuki wouldn't give everyone gourmet cells, just those closest to him would suffice. Plus those connected to them. As for others, even with good relationships, Yuki wouldn't go that far. Without Yuki providing ingredients, they couldn't improve their gourmet cells. So even with gourmet cell fusion, their physical capabilities would only surpass ordinary humans. Their lifespans wouldn't change significantly. Yuki wasn't anyone's babysitter, he'd only fuse gourmet cells for select individuals. Returning to the Food Wars world, Yuki felt somewhat nostalgic. Calculating by World of Souls time, he'd become an old monster of unknown age. But in this world, his physical age hadn't even reached 20. His return was a joyous occasion. He had been gone for a while, and everyone was thrilled to see him. Soon after, he gathered Megumi Tadokoro, Alice Nakiri, and Irina Nakiri together for a private meeting. "Yuki, what are we doing?" Megumi looked at him with confusion. The three knew about each other's situations and understood Yuki's abilities. They'd long accepted each other's existence. But this was Yuki's first time gathering all three together. Something important was clearly happening. "What I'm about to tell you is going to shatter your perception of reality." And with that, Yuki told them everything. He explained the existence of Toriko World, the incredible truth about gourmet cells, the real hierarchy of chef rankings that existed beyond their wildest dreams, everything. Just as he had expected, their worldviews crumbled. The sheer volume of information was too much to process, leaving them in a state of stunned, wide-eyed silence. Chapter 234. Power to dominate the Food Wars world, everyone's shock. World travel? So, when you were gone, you were in another world? Alice was the first to break the silence, her brilliant, scientific mind racing to catch up with the impossible revelations. "That's right. The chef ranking system, you know, the higher levels of culinary mastery, I brought all of that back from another world." Yuki nodded. The Food Wars world was too weak, completely incomparable to Toriko world. "No wonder you became so powerful. Another world. I'm really curious what it's like." Megumi's eyes sparkled with a mixture of awe and curiosity. "That's not the most important part, is it?" Irina interjected, her sharp mind, as always, locked on the most practical and tantalizing detail. "The main thing is these gourmet cells. They can make you stronger, and you can eat as much as you want without getting fat?" Even just hearing the basic effects, she could tell this was a complete game-changer, a power that defied all known laws of biology and physics. "So, just how strong can these gourmet cells make you?" Alice asked curiously. Yuki had mentioned superhuman strength, but that description remained frustratingly vague without specific metrics. "How strong? Let me show you." With a mischievous smile, Yuki activated his mobile kitchen, the strange, ethereal substance extending from his hands to envelop the three of them. Suddenly, they found themselves in a bizarre, otherworldly space, floating in a protective bubble of pure energy. "This is the mobile kitchen. It's a special space that will protect you. Your normal bodies wouldn't be able to handle what you're about to experience." After speaking, Yuki launched them skyward. In an instant, they'd left Earth behind, experiencing firsthand the view of their planet from space. Protected within the mobile kitchen, the three didn't worry about vacuum exposure. Yuki's mobile kitchen differed crucially from the World of Souls, it lacked that grinding erosion. Otherwise, he wouldn't dare casually wrap people inside. As for Yuki himself, having consumed 6 ingredients, he'd long gained the ability to survive in space. His safety wasn't a concern. This is... Looking at the massive planet before them, the three stood speechless. "Gourmet cells make you stronger, but you need special ingredients to fuel their growth," Yuki explained, his voice calm and steady in the silent expanse. "Their power is measured by a numerical level. The higher the level, the stronger you are. To destroy a planet like the one below us, you'd need a level of over 3,000. The Food Wars world's Earth was much smaller than Toriko's, lacking gourmet cell reinforcement. The planet was incredibly fragile. Anyone exceeding level 3,000 could easily obliterate Earth. Of course, Yuki meant easily. Lower-level beasts could still destroy the planet given enough time and continuous attacks, not particularly difficult. Hiss. Alice now desperately wanted to know Yuki's level. In her mind, instantly bringing them to space meant his level couldn't be low. As for my cell level, to be honest, I'm not sure. But it's definitely over 10,000. Yuki shook his head. He genuinely didn't know his exact level. Once levels broke 10,000, special methods determined capture levels, methods the Blue Nitro had developed. While seemingly useful, Midoriya's words revealed their unreliability. After all, truly powerful beings constantly broke through their limits. Take Midoriya himself, having eaten only 6 ingredients, he'd briefly held off Acacia, who'd consumed 8 ingredients and fused with his appetite demon. So Midoriya considered capture levels a joke reference material at best. Being deceived by capture levels could cost your life. 10,000. All three were stunned. They'd imagined Yuki might have reached thousands, even several thousand. But casually dropping 10,000 was hard to accept. Seeing their dumbfounded expressions, Yuki smiled. This was just an estimate, he only knew his cell level exceeded 10,000, not by how much. Besides, cell level didn't equal combat power. Yuki had pioneered new paths, his power control surpassing everyone on Earth. His combat strength was naturally more terrifying. Without proper benchmarks, Yuki had no way to measure his real power. All he knew for certain was that he'd surpass late-stage Acacia and Toriko by a massive margin. As for the White Demon, Yuki wasn't certain. That entity's power was too absurd. Even after Toriko fused with the Red Demon, reaching cell levels of tens of thousands, he could only withstand one White Demon strike. If the White Demon moved too much, Toriko's body would still collapse. I haven't tested it, but I did kill 2 beings exceeding level 6,000 in that world. Yuki remembered Monkey King Bambina and Dragon King D-Rouse, now part of his combat record. Over 6,000. This number shocked them again. Yuki had casually killed beings capable of easily destroying planets, impossible to imagine such scenes. Fusing with gourmet cells has many benefits. You'll experience them soon. With that, Yuki brought everyone back to Earth. They needed quite a while to recover from their shock. Alright, who's fusing with gourmet cells first? Yuki asked. The 3 exchanged glances before Megumi stepped forward. She was first to grow close to Yuki. Despite her usual girl-next-door demeanor, Megumi showed remarkable determination in these situations. Then Megumi goes first. But first, some preparations. Yuki produced massive amounts of cuisine, all from Toriko's world. The capture levels weren't high, all below level 5 ingredients, but the quantity was enormous. Yuki's portions could stuff 1,000 people. So much delicious food, slurp. Why'd you bring all this out, Yuki? Alice wiped her drool before asking. The other 2 looked equally curious, these ingredients looked incredibly tempting. The aroma was equally enticing. Fortunately, Yuki had blocked the scent spread, otherwise, countless people would have gathered here. After the fusion, your appetite will skyrocket. Your body will be undergoing a massive transformation, and it will need a huge amount of energy to fuel the process. You'll need to eat a lot. With the explanation out of the way, Megumi stood before him, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Yuki took out 10 vials of the perfected, extracted gourmet cells and began the fusion process. Once gourmet cell fusion began, Yuki monitored Megumi intensely, terrified of any problems. Though he'd tested countless times before, this was fusing gourmet cells into someone most precious to him. He had to maintain absolute vigilance. Under Yuki's watchful gaze, the gourmet cells began their intricate fusion process. Megumi could feel the transformation rippling through every fiber of her being, each cell awakening to a new reality. In the next instant, horror flashed across her face as her body began to wither, skin pulling tight against bone like parchment. A devastating hunger crashed over her, primal, overwhelming, threatening to consume her very consciousness. Megumi, the gourmet cell fusion is complete. Start eating, quickly. Your body's energy is being rapidly absorbed. If you don't eat now, you'll be in serious danger. Yuki's urgent warning snapped through the haze of hunger as he watched the successful fusion take hold. His words jolted Megumi back to awareness. Without hesitation, she grabbed the nearest food and began devouring it with desperate intensity. Gone was any trace of the gentle girl next door. Food disappeared into her mouth at an alarming rate. She didn't just eat the meat, she crushed and swallowed the bones. Every morsel vanished with mechanical efficiency. In mere moments, Megumi had demolished a portion meant for several people, then immediately began her assault on the remaining dishes. The spectacle left Alice and Irina completely stunned, their eyes wide with disbelief. By the time they recovered from their shock, Megumi had consumed food volumes that exceeded her own body size several times over. Yet her stomach showed no change whatsoever, as if everything she ate was being transported to another dimension entirely. Is it really okay for her to keep eating like this? She's already consumed so much. Irina's voice carried genuine concern. While Yuki had warned them about the increased appetite that came with gourmet cells, she never imagined it would manifest like this. The sheer scale defied all logic. Don't worry about it. Someone who's fused with gourmet cells can easily consume food meant for hundreds of people, and that's just the initial fusion stage. At my level, I could literally devour the planet beneath our feet if I wanted to. Yuki's casual statement reflected his reality. He had unlocked entirely new dimensions of taste perception. Even though this world's Earth wasn't the same as the one from Toriko's universe, he could still taste it if he chose to. Of course, this Earth's flavor would only match this world's culinary standards, completely incomparable to the rich, complex tastes of Toriko's world. Eat the planet? Both girls exclaimed in unison, their minds reeling at the concept. Never in their wildest dreams had they imagined hearing someone casually discuss planetary consumption. What kind of bizarre, niche fiction had their reality become? In that other world, absolutely anything can become an ingredient. After consuming something called another, you unlock completely new level of taste. When that happens, anything you can physically bite becomes food. You can literally eat anything. Yuki's simple explanation did little to ease their disbelief. The concept of treating planets as meals remained overwhelmingly absurd. If these words hadn't come from Yuki himself, and if Megumi wasn't currently demonstrating the impossible by consuming several times her body weight in food, they would have dismissed it as pure fantasy. The spectacle continued as everyone watched Megumi single-handedly devour food meant for 1,000 people. Only then did she finally lean back with a satisfied sigh. Her body had completely recovered. In fact, the gourmet cell fusion had enhanced both her figure and appearance beyond their already attractive baseline. Am I imagining things, or did Megumi just become even more beautiful? Alice rubbed her eyes, convinced that Megumi had somehow grown noticeably more attractive than before. That's no illusion. When women fuse with gourmet cells, part of the enhancement specifically targets appearance and figure. Yuki explained that he'd never seen a woman's gourmet cell activation result in becoming a muscle-bound warrior. Well, except for a few extremely rare exceptions who deliberately pursued that path. Chapter 235, The Ultimate Lottery Ticket, a room full of superhumans. IT has that kind of effect too? Yuki, hurry up and give me gourmet cells. Hearing this revelation, neither Alice nor Irina could hold back any longer. Alice practically launched herself at Yuki, immediately switching to her most persuasive, affectionate mode. Watching this display, Irina couldn't help rolling her eyes. Fine, she admitted defeat in this particular arena. Her lingering tsundere tendencies made it impossible to compete with Alice's shameless directness. Alice's personality embraced spontaneity without caring about others' opinions. In moments like these, she naturally held the advantage. Soon enough, Alice experienced the same transformation as Megumi. Watching Alice's ravenous consumption, Megumi's face turned bright red. She'd been so focused on eating earlier that she hadn't considered anything else. Now, realizing how crude and unladylike she must have appeared to everyone, she wanted to find a hole to crawl into. The embarrassment was overwhelming. Her only consolation was that everyone would go through the same process, that absolute, fusion-induced hunger that nearly destroyed rational thought made maintaining composure impossible. After Alice finished, it was Irina's turn. Alright, you've all completed the fusion successfully. Take these, they can measure your body's cell level. Yuki handed each of them the latest detection devices. Taking the detectors eagerly, all three immediately checked their cell levels. The displays all showed the same number, level 3. After all, they'd only just fused with gourmet cells, and without appetite demons inside them, the effects were naturally reduced. Only level 3? But I feel strong enough to punch a bull to death right now. Alice stared at her level reading with surprise. She could clearly sense the explosive power coursing through her body, yet this incredible strength registered as merely level 3. That's already excellent, Alice. Don't forget. Level 3000 is enough to shatter the planet beneath our feet. Irina reminded her cousin, watching Alice's dissatisfied expression. Oh right, I completely forgot about that. Alice laughed somewhat embarrassedly at the reminder. Indeed, she'd forgotten if level 3000 could destroy Earth, then level 3 possessing this kind of strength made perfect sense. Your current power isn't just enough to kill a bull, you could take down an elephant with ease. Yuki added. Gourmet cell levels weren't something to take lightly. At level 3, an ordinary world's elephant would fall with a single punch. An elephant? That's terrifying. Yuki, why can I control my strength so well? I remember lots of manga where sudden power increases make control really difficult. Irina's question drew curious looks from Megumi and Alice as well. True, sudden power increases are typically hard to control. But that doesn't apply to people with gourmet cells. Anyone with gourmet cells gains basic control ability whenever their strength increases. This control prevents your power from going wild and causing destruction. Of course, that's the bare minimum. To truly improve your combat ability, you need to continuously refine your power control. Yuki explained. His spatial storage contained various training tools from Food Honor Temple. Of course, Yuki had no intention of copying Food Honor Temple's methods exactly. While their techniques were excellent, they were designed for criminals, making the teaching methods far from gentle. Yuki's plan for improving everyone's power control wasn't about combat preparation, that was unnecessary. They only needed to eat various ingredients to reach levels in the thousands. While such levels would make them the weakest among their tier, this world didn't require them to fight. Yuki gave them gourmet cells partly to extend their lifespans, but also to enhance their culinary skills. With increased strength came the need for better control. Once they reached a certain mastery level, improving their cooking would become much simpler. That was the real reason for the gourmet cell fusion. Additionally, I'll be providing various delicacies from that world to help raise your gourmet cell levels. But before that, I need you all to make an important choice. Yuki's words left everyone puzzled. Choice? What kind of choice? Seeing Yuki's serious expression, they asked with confusion. After fusing with gourmet cells and reaching certain levels, your lifespan will continuously extend. In that world, there are 8 incredibly special ingredients. Once you've consumed all 8, your lifespan becomes essentially infinite. As long as you're not killed, you'll live forever. Eternal life sounds wonderful, but without companions, it's meaningless. I also don't want to watch you separate from your loved ones, so I need you to make a choice. You have 2 paths before you. First option, I have a method to extend lifespans, though it can't add too much at once since human bodies have limits to what they can handle. Second option, they undergo the same gourmet cell fusion as you, achieving immortality by consuming the 8 ingredients while also gaining tremendous power. However, regardless of which method you choose, I'll only apply it to your direct family members. If future generations appear, I won't help them fuse gourmet cells. Yuki laid out the terms clearly. His life level continued ascending, he didn't even know if he could still have descendants. But with their lifespans extending indefinitely, Alice and the others might gain younger siblings eventually. He could help those siblings with gourmet cell fusion, but future generations beyond that were on their own. He wasn't some universal caretaker. He was helping everyone fuse gourmet cells now only because they were people he cared about. Their families qualified through association. We can't really decide something like this ourselves. Could we ask our parents first? Alice inquired. Of course. It's best if you gather everyone together, then I'll explain everything. Yuki nodded. Hearing this, all three immediately began contacting their families. Drop everything I'm doing? I understand. Senzaman received his granddaughter's call with surprise. While he didn't know what she was planning, it clearly wasn't a simple matter. Since she'd emphasized its importance so seriously, he abandoned his current affairs and immediately headed to their location. Meanwhile, So and Leonora Nakiri began their journey back from abroad. Nana Nakiri was also en route. Megumi's family lives nearby, so they arrived first after Senzaman. One day later, everyone who'd received the message understood its importance. Without any delays, they'd all gathered at the designated location. Yuki called Sarge over, his little secretary naturally couldn't be excluded. Irina had brought Asahi Nakiri and Hisako Arato, along with Hisako's parents. Yuki wasn't surprised by this. To Irina, Hisako was absolutely indispensable. Irina had treated Hisako like family since childhood, sharing every secret with her first. She was family in all but blood, so Yuki didn't mind including Hisako in this opportunity. Once everyone had assembled, Yuki explained everything about gourmet cells. Megumi and the others demonstrated their newfound abilities, shattering floor tiles with a single step, punching holes through walls with casual strikes. This series of demonstrations left the gathered crowd absolutely stunned, their minds struggling to process what they were witnessing. After learning about Gourmet Cell's full capabilities, they suddenly felt like they'd won the ultimate lottery. This opportunity had fallen into their laps. This was immortality, something countless people throughout history had desperately pursued. Beyond eternal life, there was that terrifying power to consider. Among the 4 people standing before them, 3 had become superhuman. The 4th was even more frightening, capable of casually shattering the earth beneath their feet. These scenarios that belonged in fiction had somehow manifested in reality. Everyone needed considerable time to process this revelation. Eventually, they all turned to Yuki with eager anticipation. After all, only Yuki could perform gourmet cell fusion, so everything depended on him. Seeing their expressions, Yuki didn't hesitate. He produced massive amounts of food and repeated the same process. Everyone began their gourmet cell fusion. With so many people present, this fusion session took several hours to complete. By the end, everyone in the room had transformed into superhuman beings, their bodies humming with newfound power that defied everything they'd previously believed possible about human limitations. Chapter 236, Training Equipment, Everyone Learning Food Honor. The changes to their bodies were dramatic, especially for the older members. Age had taken its toll, leaving them with the will but not the strength to do many things. While the gourmet cell fusion didn't rewind the clock completely, it did make their bodies immensely stronger. Now, only their appearance set them apart from the younger generation. Physically, they were on equal footing. Now that you've all fused with gourmet cells, I have a new choice for you. Yuki's words immediately captured everyone's attention, pulling their focus from their newfound power and back to him. The ingredients I have can easily raise your power to a level of several thousand, strong enough to shatter this planet with ease. The casual way he discussed planetary destruction sent shivers through the room, yet everyone listened intently. I can take you to that level right now, but your control over that power won't improve much. On the other hand, I have a technique called food honor. Yuki paused, letting the weight of the choice settle over them. Once you master food honor, your control over your power will increase tenfold. At a proficient level, it could even be 100-fold improvement. Greater control over your power will be a massive help in improving your culinary skills. But if you choose to learn food honor, you can't get the immediate power boost. His explanation carried a teacher's patience mixed with a strategist's precision. Once your power level gets too high, Yuki explained, the training tools I have will become completely useless to you. The choice was clear: learn control first, then gain power, or get the power now and struggle with control later. That's not much of a choice, is it? It has to be food honor. Senzaman Nakiri, the seasoned veteran, made his decision almost instantly. With Yuki around, the power boost could come at any time, but the opportunity to master food honor was a rare one. Missing this chance now would make it infinitely harder later. He chose the long game. Exactly. It's a no-brainer. I choose food honor too. So Nakiri and the others quickly followed suit. No one in the room was a fool, and as chefs, they understood the value of control over raw power. Choosing food honor now only meant delaying their power up. Choosing raw power meant making food honor 1,000 times harder to learn later. It seems everyone is on the same page. In that case, let's begin your food honor training. Yuki then brought out the necessary training equipment. He had no intention of rushing them to mastery, only prodigies like Toriko and Komatsu could achieve that in a short time. The gratitude-based path of food honor wasn't for everyone. Toriko and Komatsu had mastered it quickly only because they already possessed an immense, innate gratitude for food. The training simply converted that feeling into a tangible skill. Others weren't so lucky. The vice masters at the Food Honor Temple were the perfect example. Some spent their entire lives there and never reached a proficient level. So, Yuki only needed them to reach a certain foundation before he would boost their power. A full course of training would normally take years. Yuki handed out the items he had brought, giving everyone enough to begin their training. This is a torch Horsetail. You light it with your gratitude. This training requires you to maintain an incredibly strong sense of gratitude, which, to put it simply, is a way to heighten your focus. He began to teach them how to use the tools, but when they tried it themselves, only Megumi's torch Horsetail stayed lit for more than a few seconds. Everyone else's flickered out almost instantly. This was perfectly normal. Unlike Toriko's world, where gratitude flowed more purely, this ordinary world produced more complex, diluted emotions. Megumi's slight advantage came from her naturally gentle temperament and pure heart, qualities that aligned better with the exercise's requirements. Once everyone understood the basic technique, they threw themselves into practice with determined intensity. Unfortunately, after several hours of concentrated effort, not a single person could maintain their torch flame for even a full minute. Most couldn't even reach 30 seconds. Worse, practicing food meditation in a group created additional challenges. One person's wandering thoughts could disrupt everyone nearby, causing even successful attempts to fail through proximity alone. When you can maintain the flame for 30 minutes continuously, you'll have achieved basic entry level. Yuki said, looking at their dejected faces. Half an hour? We can't even do a minute right now. Hearing the 30-minute requirement, their faces fell in unison. Only after trying it themselves did they realize just how difficult it was to light the torch Horsetail. And that was just the entry requirement. Yuki, has anyone really managed to do it for that long? Alice's face carried an expression of pure suffering. Her naturally vivacious personality made food meditation especially torturous. Sitting still and maintaining singular focus went against every fiber of her being. Of course. Almost everyone at the Food Honor Temple can do it after a while. The vice masters can light one for several hours. As for the master of the temple, Chin, he can light hundreds at once and keep them lit indefinitely. And even though my path is different from the gratitude-based one, I can still light these with ease. As he spoke, Yuki activated his own food honor. In the next second, every torch Horsetail in front of them burst into flame, the fire leaping high into the air. The sight left everyone speechless. See? Once your food honor reaches a certain level, this becomes trivial. Right now it feels impossibly difficult because you haven't even crossed the threshold yet. This isn't something you'll master in a day or two, it requires patience and persistent practice. Yuki said with a smile. Hearing this, everyone nodded with renewed understanding. Indeed, every journey began with a single step, the universal truth that beginnings were always the hardest part. Once they crossed that initial threshold, progress would accelerate. Though they knew reaching Yuki's level would be incredibly difficult, they weren't in a hurry. They knew they were essentially immortal now. They had to find something to do with all that time. Since you all understand, let me treat you to something special, Yuki said. Since everyone was gathered, he naturally had to bring out something good. Huh? Won't eating now affect our food honor training? Someone asked with confusion. It won't. The ingredient I'm bringing out has a low capture level, so at most, it will activate your gourmet cells once. That small boost won't affect your training. Did you think immortality was that simple? To achieve it, you have to eat a massive amount of food. And of those 8 special ingredients, I've only collected 7. The last one hasn't matured yet. Yuki shook his head. He hadn't even gotten his hands on God yet, so strictly speaking, they couldn't achieve true immortality. But even so, after eating 6 of the ingredients and their gourmet cells reaching a certain level, living for thousands, even tens of thousands of years became child's play. Understanding settled over the group as Yuki produced the rainbow fruit he'd captured in the former Biotope 1. The moment the rainbow fruit appeared, its dazzling light and incredibly enticing aroma captivated everyone. That smell is amazing. I can't stop drooling. Besides Yuki, no one else could control their salivating. It couldn't be helped, the rainbow fruit was just that potent. Even from dozens of kilometers away, you could smell its alluring fragrance. This is a rainbow fruit. Though its capture level isn't high, it's a very special ingredient. A single drop of its juice can turn an entire 25-meter swimming pool into pure fruit juice, Yuki explained to the group. 1 drop can convert an entire pool? How concentrated is that? Can our bodies actually handle consuming something so intense? The implications were staggering. The sheer density of sugars and energy packed into each drop defied comprehension. A normal person certainly couldn't handle it, fatally so. But you're no longer normal. With gourmet cells, aside from certain deadly poisons and ingredients with severe side effects, you can consume almost anything safely. Yuki hadn't forgotten about the truly poisonous ingredients, like a toxic puffer whale, or ingredients with strong side effects, like the devil serpent. If you used too much of that, you'd be bedridden for a year. Then there were certain alcoholic beverages, drink beyond your body's tolerance, and you might remain intoxicated for months, even years. The truest form of drinking yourself into oblivion. Reassured by his explanation, everyone relaxed. In any other world, an ordinary person consuming even a drop of this juice would likely die from the sheer concentration of nutrients, literally killed by excessive nourishment. Yuki carefully portioned the rainbow fruit, placing individual servings before each person. After Yuki gave the word, everyone began to eat. Only after Yuki gave permission did anyone begin eating, basic respect for the one who'd provided such miraculous food. As the rainbow fruit entered their mouths, everyone finally experienced what true, ultimate deliciousness was. The food they had eaten before, though very good, couldn't compare to what was in front of them. The deliciousness of the rainbow fruit was on a completely different level. And its flavor was constantly changing in their mouths, producing all sorts of different tastes. These flavors were intoxicating. Just as everyone was immersed in the deliciousness, their gourmet cells began to activate. The change in their bodies immediately snapped them back to reality. The women's transformations were uniformly positive, their figures became more perfectly proportioned, their features more refined and beautiful. It was as if they'd undergone the world's most comprehensive beauty treatment, emerging renewed and radiant. As for the men, the situation was completely different. Their muscles bulged one by one, and those wearing tighter-fitting clothes, like Sonakiri, had their suits rip in several places. Fortunately, this being their first gourmet cell activation, the muscle growth remained relatively modest. Additionally, they'd consumed rainbow fruit rather than meteor garlic. Had they eaten meteor garlic instead, the consequences would have been catastrophic. That particular ingredient caused muscles to expand at minimum tenfold, with stronger reactions reaching dozens of times normal size. Everyone would have transformed into grotesque muscle monsters. Chapter 237. copying the white demon's power. Our muscles have grown incredibly large. At least they'll partially recede later, we won't become permanent muscle freaks. Still, even like this, we could compete with professional bodybuilders. Everyone examined their transformed physiques with mixed amazement and concern. As your gourmet cells continue strengthening, your muscle development will become increasingly pronounced. However, this isn't irreversible. Two solutions exist. First, we can use knocking techniques to seal your power, allowing muscles to return to normal size. Second, once you achieve Food Honor Mastery, you'll gain conscious control over muscle compression. Chin 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 at Food Honor Temple exemplifies this perfectly. His actual weight exceeds 1 ton, yet his normal height doesn't even reach 1 meter because he's completely compressed his power inward. Yuki explained. The Monkey King Bambina that Yuki had encountered weighed over 1,000 tons, compared to the mere 25 tons described in the original work. Many things were different from the original story, but Yuki wasn't surprised. This was more reasonable. You can do that? But it's so hard to master Food Honor. Our muscles won't just keep growing until we look like monsters, will they? Everyone understood that achieving Food Honor Mastery would be extraordinarily difficult, so they worried about continuous muscle expansion. Without the special ingredients I provide, your gourmet cells won't improve, and neither will your muscles. So you don't have to worry about that. Yuki shook his head with amusement. The Food Wars world contained no ingredients from Toriko's universe. Gourmet cells were essentially inert here, only ingredients Yuki provided could trigger their growth. Hearing this reassurance, everyone finally relaxed. Thank goodness they wouldn't transform into muscle-bound monstrosities. Though admittedly, their current appearance already qualified as impressively muscular. Those already naturally built found the transformation less jarring, but seeing Asahi and Sonakiri transformed into muscular titans created an almost comical contrast. After all, one had a serious, cold demeanor, and the other was handsome. Such faces paired with a muscular body. It was a strange combination. But neither of them minded. After all, compared to immortality and superhuman strength, just becoming a muscular strongman was a small price to pay. Yuki remained in the world of Food Wars for a while longer, watching as everyone began to adapt to their newfound power and take their first steps with Food Honor. They had only just begun their training, they hadn't even mastered the basics yet. He knew that guidance was critical in these early stages. Leaving them to figure it out on their own would be a disservice. In the beginning, everyone needed a guiding hand to accelerate their growth. Fortunately, this wasn't like some arcane magic system, where the potential was limitless but the risks were lethal. With an RPG-style system, the path to power was fraught with peril, or a single misstep could lead to utter annihilation. Gourmet cells were far more forgiving. Once everyone had a decent grasp of the fundamentals, Yuki returned to the world of Toriko. He'd had enough rest now. He planned to wander the gourmet world, collecting ingredients and waiting for the gourmet solar eclipse. This time, Jiro didn't join him. In his own words, Yuki's power had already reached a terrifying level. He could navigate the gourmet world on his own without any trouble. More than a month into his wanderings, Yuki stumbled upon Toriko and his group. To his surprise, the animosity that had once defined the relationship between Toriko and Star June was gone, replaced by a hard-won camaraderie. He suspected Komatsu's gentle influence was the catalyst. Otherwise, after everything Star June had done, it was unlikely Toriko would have been so forgiving. They were brothers, yes, but there was a deep-seated grudge between them. After reuniting with them, Yuki offered Toriko some of the demon shell meat. His goal was simple: to awaken the white demon slumbering within Toriko. The white demon had always been a part of him, just dormant. It needed a catalyst like the demon shell to be stirred. It was a bizarre ingredient, capable of awakening a being as powerful as the white demon. Once the white demon was awakened, Yuki unleashed his own gourmet cells, replicating its very essence. He had to admit, the white demon's power was terrifying. Even at his current level, Yuki could feel an immense strain just from attempting to wield it. But he was satisfied. The White Demon was, aside from the gourmet gods, the strongest being to appear in the original story. That kind of power was more than enough for him. He figured that after he consumed all 8 of Acacia's ingredients, he would be able to handle the White Demon's power with greater ease. Unlike Dawn Slime, whose power manifested in a variety of spectacular techniques. Whirlwinds, lightning, meteor showers, even supernovas, the White Demon was different. It possessed no elaborate techniques. Much like Mihawk from the world of One Piece, its power was absolute. Every basic attack was an ultimate move, a perfect expression of force pushed to its theoretical limit. It was a simple, brutal style that Yuki found immensely appealing. After giving a portion of the demon shell to Toriko's group, Yuki continued his journey through the gourmet world. During this time, the passage between the human and gourmet worlds was officially opened. Feeding the tens of billions of people in the human world was a monumental task. But the gourmet world's land had incredible regenerative abilities. Midoriya's malice couldn't blight a single area forever. The human world hadn't recovered simply because its quality couldn't compare. With the land of the gourmet world gradually regaining its vitality, the IGO was once again able to provide a steady supply of delicacies to humanity. Yuki didn't meddle. While it seemed strange for the IGO to be essentially feeding the entire population, that was their business. The IGO wasn't his creation, it was Ichiryu's. And since Ichiryu was still alive, he remained its heart and soul, though he had already promoted Mansam to vice president. He knew Mansam could manage the IGO well, preventing it from falling into ruin. As time passed, Toriko and the others also returned to the human world. But this time, they weren't needed as saviors. And because Yuki had taken most of the key ingredients, Ichiryu had no choice but to have the 4 heavenly kings consume 6 of the legendary ingredients before sending them back out to explore the gourmet world. Meanwhile, the gourmet solar eclipse drew ever closer. The entire planet fell into a strange, peaceful state, the calm before the storm. As everyone waited, Yuki clearly sensed several colossal presences descending upon each continent. That presence, it's Acacia's. For Jiro and Granny Setsuno, that aura was all too familiar. Though there were subtle differences upon closer inspection, the essence was unmistakable. They're scattered across every continent. Let's go take a look. Jiro shot off towards the nearest disturbance. Soon, the group saw a creature so grotesque and abstract it defied description. It was devouring everything in its path, edible or not. Anything it saw, it consumed. This must be a splinter of Acacia's cells. Just as Yuki spoke, other powerful auras began to rise across the globe. The 8 kings had begun to act, moving to deal with these monsters. Allowing these creatures to rampage was not an option. The Horse King on the 8th continent even launched an attack towards the 7th. A battle wolf from the 2nd continent, second only to Guinness with a capture level over 6,000, headed for the 1st. It was a necessary intervention. The kings of the 7th and 1st continents had been killed by Yuki. While the struggle for succession had begun, it would take time to crown new rulers. Without an 8th king to keep it in check, Acacia's cells were unstoppable, an invincible force that nothing could contain. In the end, the Horse King and Battle Wolf had no choice but to step in. Acacia's cells. The gourmet solar eclipse hasn't even started, and he's already causing trouble. Looking at the monster before him, Jiro threw a single punch. In the original story, because Jiro hadn't fully unsealed his power, his big bang had sent the creature into space but had also cost him his hand. Setsuno had to use cure water to restore it. This time, Jiro didn't use the big bang, but that didn't mean the attack was any weaker. The current Jiro was countless times stronger than his original counterpart. With a single punch, the cell monster was instantly annihilated. Watching the creature turn to nothing, Jiro made his decision. He was going to find Acacia. Since he had chosen to act, he would have to face the consequences. The gourmet solar eclipse was almost here. It was the perfect time to settle old scores. Chapter 238. The Wolf King's Goodwill, Birthplace of God, 3 brothers arrive at the lair. After the cell monster was dealt with, 2 more presences approached. When the two figures appeared, everyone saw that it was President Ichiryu and Mid-Aura. They had also sensed Acacia's aura. It was just that Yuki's group was closer, so they had arrived first. Ichiryu and Mid-Aura were a little late. Seeing them arrive, Jiro didn't waste any words and told them his thoughts. Going to find the Blue Nitro and Master Acacia? Good. The gourmet solar eclipse is almost here. We'll have to trouble you next, Chef Yuki. At this stage, you're probably the only one who can prepare God. Ichiryu nodded and then looked at Yuki. Once the gourmet solar eclipse began, God would appear and they would definitely need his help. After all, only he could hear the voice of the ingredients. And the preparation method for God was something even Granny Setsuno, who had reached the level of a God chef, found incredibly difficult. In that case, leave God to me. You three can handle your private affairs. Yuki wasn't worried about whether they could kill Acacia. It was impossible. Even if Acacia wasn't at his full strength and hadn't devoured Neo. Neo's characteristics made him like an unkillable cockroach. So, once Yuki had collected all the ingredients, he would go and deal with Acacia. Acacia wanted to save Neo, right? Yuki would give him that chance. In the end, Acacia was destined to die. As for Neo, Yuki's purpose in saving it was for the ingredients within it. The ingredients Neo had devoured were still alive in another space. It was better to release them. Otherwise, where would he go to capture them? As for the Blue Nitros, there was no need to even consider them. There was only one path for them, death. After they had made their plan, Granny Setsuno and Nono returned to the human world. After all, the upcoming battle would be incredibly dangerous, and the commotion would be immense. Her task was still to protect the human world. Ichiryu even sent a message to the people of the Hex Food World, warning them of the coming disturbance. Setsuno could protect the human world, but the gourmet world was the domain of the 8 kings. If you interfered in their domain, you wouldn't be thanked, you'd be met with hostility. So, she could only protect the human world. At this moment, because her strength had greatly increased and she had returned to her youthful state, using the pressure dome to cover the human world was no problem. Yuki headed directly for the second continent. The other 3 went to the first continent. When Setsuno returned to the human world, she immediately opened her pressure dome. That's Ms. Setsuno's pressure dome. Why is she opening it now? And isn't this range a bit too large? It's covering the entire human world. In his restaurant, Yuta felt the change in the outside world and his eyes widened. The pressure dome was her signature move, everyone knew that. But for her to use it to cover the entire human world, that was the most terrifying part. Shin, you feel it, right? Setsuno has enveloped the entire human world. At the Disappearing Cuisine restaurant, Chio and Shin Chinchin were both here. After her inner conflict was resolved, their relationship had naturally recovered. Shin Chinchin was too lazy to stay at the Food Honor Temple and spent his days at the Disappearing Cuisine restaurant. Covered the entire human world? Before Shin Chinchin could speak, Kairu, who was beside them, looked at Chio with a confused expression. She didn't understand what that meant. Her strength wasn't sufficient. Though she could sense the existence of the pressure dome, she couldn't perceive its range. That move is called the pressure dome. It's Setsuno's signature move, an absolute defense. And now, that move is covering the entire human world. For her to do this, it means the human world will be in danger, so she needs to protect it. Chio, let's go take a look. If there's anything we can help with, we can lend a hand. After Shin Chinchin finished speaking, Chio immediately nodded. The powerhouses of the human world all rushed towards Gourmet Town. They desperately wanted to know what was going on. They wondered if it was related to the powerful auras that had erupted before. When some of them arrived, they learned the reason from Nono's explanation. The gourmet solar eclipse was about to arrive, and Acacia's students had all gone to the gourmet world, where there would be a great battle. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. No wonder Granny Setsuno had to protect the entire human world. She had to. They still had some concept of the strength of those three. Once those three went all out, their attacks could probably send the human world flying. And this time, all three were working together, which made it even more terrifying. It was hard to imagine just how powerful their opponent must be. Some were even wondering if Acacia's students were planning to go to war with all the 8 kings. The human world's powerhouses had initially considered lending their strength to the coming battle. But the moment they heard it would be the 3 legendary students taking action together, that notion evaporated like morning mist. Any one of those monsters could obliterate their entire force without breaking a sweat. Throwing themselves into that conflict would be nothing more than elaborate suicide. So they made the pragmatic choice, remaining at Granny Setsuno's side as her guardians. The old woman couldn't afford any distractions during her critical preparation work. While external attacks could be deflected, what if someone had already infiltrated their ranks, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? The possibility, however slim, demanded their vigilance. Meanwhile, Yuki had already reached the second continent and immediately pinpointing the birthplace of God. Since God originated from Area Zero, Yuki could sense the underground continent's subtle vibrations with crystal clarity. This allowed him to pinpoint God's emergence point with surgical precision. He settled in to wait, ready to begin preparation the instant the legendary ingredient manifested. Suddenly, his vigil was interrupted by an unexpected visitor, not God, but the second continent's sovereign ruler, Wolf King Guinness. Guinness? What are you doing here? Yuki was surprised. He didn't think the Wolf King would be interested in eating God. After all, Guinness wasn't strong enough to even challenge it. This time, God was the strongest it had ever been, with a capture level that had broken 10,000. If Guinness tried to fight it, he would be obliterated in an instant. Seeing Yuki, Guinness let out a low howl. In the next moment, Yuki understood its meaning. It was the way powerhouses communicated even without a common language. The intent was instantly understood. He knew why Guinness was here. He had spent so much time with Jiro that his scent had undoubtedly lingered on him. While Jiro had long since grown independent, establishing his own legendary status, to Guinness he would always remain the child he'd raised. That was a fact that could never be changed. In the original story, after Jiro was killed by Acacia, Guinness had been driven to a furious rage, immediately launching its own devastating revenge. It was a testament to just how important Jiro was to the Wolf King. So, after sensing Jiro's scent on Yuki, Guinness had come to ask about their relationship. Yuki saw no reason to hide it. He explained that while he and Jiro were not master and student, he had received Jiro's help and guidance. Though Yuki had given Jiro and the others a great deal in return, and their actions had been partly to repay that debt, for Yuki, it was enough. Understanding their connection, Wolf King Guinness made an immediate decision: he would remain here. His intention was crystal clear: since this human was important to Jiro, he would offer his protection. Yuki found this development both surprising and fortuitous. Once he began preparing God, the ingredient would gradually mature rather than reaching instant completion. Other creatures might attempt to steal bites during this vulnerable period. He didn't want God to be stolen by some random beast. Having the Wolf King stand guard was an excellent solution. The two continued their unique form of communication. Although Guinness held the prestigious title of 8 King, Yuki's power dwarfed his considerably. 2 8 kings had already fallen to Yuki's hands. No matter how proud Guinness was, it wouldn't show it in front of Yuki. It knew that a powerhouse deserved respect. While Yuki and Guinness waited for God to be born, the 3 pillars of the human world had already found the Blue Nitro's lair. Acacia remained present, though he'd released cellular extensions to devour food across the planet. His main body hadn't moved from this location. In the original story, when Jiro arrived here, Acacia had already departed, leaving Jiro to slaughter nearly every Blue Nitro present. Only Acacia's timely return had prevented their complete annihilation. Otherwise, every last Blue Nitro would have died by Jiro's hand. This time was different. Acacia remained, the Blue Nitro were all present, and Jiro hadn't come alone. He'd brought Ichiryu, Midora, and the hidden Dawn Slime. And each of them was stronger than ever. Their arrival immediately caught the attention of the Blue Nitro. Chapter 239, Annihilation of the Blue Nitro, the Unkillable Acacia. At this moment, the facility housed numerous humans. These weren't from the human world, they were native inhabitants of the gourmet world. They were being driven toward the center like cattle, where they would die, feeding Acacia, or rather, Neo, with enough despair. Inio's favorite ingredient was despair, while its most hated flavor was anger. These humans, brought here to die in despair, would provide Inio with a great deal of nourishment. But this act undoubtedly enraged President Ichiryu. Though these weren't human world citizens, his inherently compassionate nature couldn't tolerate such systematic cruelty. You three deal with them. I'll get these people out of here first. Ichiryu said without a second thought, immediately using his golden calories to shield the people who were walking towards their doom. He couldn't stand by while so many died here. What a sentimental fool. Wasting time on these people at a time like this. Midora couldn't help but say. After all these years together, have you forgotten Ichiryu's nature? If he didn't try saving them, he wouldn't be Ichiryu. Jiro shook his head. Ichiryu was practically a living saint, having dedicated everything to humanity's well-being. Seeing humans suffer, even those from outside the human world, compelled him to act. Fine, let him handle his humanitarian crisis. I'm going after Acacia. You deal with those blue freaks. Midora didn't waste any more words and headed directly towards the source of Acacia's aura. But several figures quickly rushed forward, attempting to attack him. Your opponent is me. Trying to run past me without even a word? You're underestimating me a little, aren't you? Jiro threw a punch, the immense force of which directly blocked the figures rushing towards Midora. These figures were the Blue Nitro. After sensing the arrival of the three, they had immediately come out, afraid they would cause trouble. Damn you, Jiro! Get out of my way! Star Core removal. One of the Blue Nitro couldn't hold back and directly unleashed its Star Core removal technique. The name came from the fact that it had once used this move to pull the core out of a small planet. So, the move was named as such. In the original story, this move had injured Jiro, but he had dealt with it using his damage knocking. But now, this move couldn't possibly hit Jiro. Even if it did, it would be useless. The power gap between them had become an insurmountable chasm. A powerful move, but a bit too slow. It's no good if it can't hit its target. You can have a taste of my attack, two Big Bang. Jiro looked at the Blue Nitro, dodged its attack, and then sent a Big Bang its way. In truth, to deal with the Blue Nitro, he didn't even need to use such a move. A normal punch would be enough to kill it in an instant. But he still wanted to test it. The result was that the Blue Nitro's body wasn't sent into space, it was directly obliterated by the punch. Its body had been turned to nothingness. The other Blue Nitro collectively gasped in horror. They'd known Jiro was formidable, but this level of power defied comprehension. They knew their own strength very well. The result of this one punch was simply unbelievable. Seems I used excessive force. Hopefully, he won't be too confused when he resurrects. Jiro knew perfectly well these Blue Nitro could resurrect, though it hardly mattered to him. If they returned peacefully, fine. If they sought revenge, he'd gladly send them back to death or use knocking to seal them permanently. You monster! The other Blue Nitro now had very grim expressions. Jiro's strength had exceeded their estimations. They could only watch helplessly as Midora went after Acacia, completely powerless to intervene. Monster? Compared to you guys, I don't think I'm much of a monster. Your actions are the true definition of monstrous. Mid-sentence, Jiro appeared before another Blue Nitro, gripping his skull with one hand. A sharp squeeze, and another Blue Nitro died instantly. The other Blue Nitro also knew that Jiro wouldn't let them go, so they immediately launched their attacks. But their attacks were like tickles to Jiro. He didn't even need to defend, they couldn't even get close to him. In these brief moments, 5 Blue Nitro had already fallen. The 3 survivors had no idea how to respond. Run? Jiro's speed exceeded their ability to even perceive, let alone escape. Fight? That was even more of a joke. So far, Jiro had attacked exactly 5 times, each strike shattering their understanding of reality. Just as despair began claiming the Blue Nitro, a figure suddenly materialized before Jiro, landing a precise strike to his throat. Jiro, I should have taught you this. While your strength is great, sometimes, being too careless is not a good thing. The newcomer was Acacia. Though Midora had gone to find him, Acacia had sensed the death and despair of the Blue Nitro. So, he had suddenly burst over. Midora hadn't intercepted him, because there was no need. Acacia currently believed he'd successfully triggered Jiro's damage-knocking weakness, his smugness practically radiating from every pore. After all, he understood damage-knocking's mechanics very well. But the next instant, Jiro struck Acacia's identical weak point with matching precision. This strike directly stunned Acacia. He couldn't comprehend where Jiro found the strength to counterattack, especially catching him completely off guard. Damage-knocking's release should have unleashed all stored damage in a devastating cascade. Anyone suffering such trauma shouldn't have any strength remaining, yet Jiro had not only resisted but perfectly reversed the technique. Midora, you brat, you couldn't even stop one person? Jiro voiced his displeasure. He had already discovered Acacia rushing over, and he could have reacted. But he had still let Acacia attack him. Because he knew very well that Acacia was planning to target the weakness of his damage-knocking. But the current Jiro was fearless, so he had let him attack. This attack also severed Jiro's last thread of student-teacher sentiment. After all, Acacia had genuinely tried to kill him, what bonds remained after that? You're one to talk. Weren't you deliberately letting him attack you? I don't believe you couldn't have dodged an attack like that. Midora responded with exasperation. He hadn't stopped Acacia, true, but Jiro had obviously allowed himself to be struck, right? This is impossible. Why are you completely fine after your damage-knocking was undone? Acacia demanded while letting Neo devour his internal damage, his shock evident in every word. You taught me damage-knocking, that's right. But that doesn't mean everyone has to follow the rules. I encountered a super genius who revolutionized the technique entirely. Jiro thought of Yuki. Mentioning that young man always filled him with amazement at his overwhelming talent, the strongest he'd ever witnessed, bar none. Modified damage-knocking? How? Acacia's face was very grim. Damage-knocking had been specifically designed to counter Jiro, knowing his troublesome strength required special measures. That's why Acacia had struck first, intending to eliminate Jiro immediately. The man had reached levels of callous calculation that would spare not even his own students. Pure murderous intent. Forget it, I'm done wasting words with you. Your attack just now said everything that needed saying. Midora, he's all yours. Jiro's disappointment in Acacia's immediate lethal strike had reached absolute zero. The man had genuinely intended to murder him, so further conversation was pointless. You don't need to tell me, I have accounts to settle with this bastard. Frozy's debt needs proper payment. Midora now fully understood how he'd been manipulated. Acacia had deliberately arranged everyone else's absence, leaving only him. The entire scenario had been orchestrated from the start. While death had been Frozy's choice, in Midora's view, this matter was far from resolved. He'd been drowning in self-recrimination for centuries, consumed by guilt. Those hundreds of years of hunger all traced back to this bastard before him. Midora had no intention of letting Acacia walk away. Chapter 240, The Birth of God. You're going to let this kid Midora face me alone? After a few hundred years, you've all become very arrogant. Acacia looked at the two of them with a crazy expression. He's enough to deal with you. Acacia, don't underestimate Midora. With his current strength, you can't fight him. After Jiro spoke, he didn't care about Acacia anymore. He still had his own things to do. Seeing Jiro about to leave, Acacia had originally wanted to stop him. But the next second, a tongue shot towards him at an extremely terrifying speed. This was Medora's hungry tongue. And this strike made Acacia's face change. Because in this strike, besides the horrifying power, there was an emotion of extreme anger. The appearance of this emotion made Acacia's expression a bit unnatural. After all, this was what Neo hated most. He was only fortunate now that though this anger was strong enough, Medora's attack wasn't up to par. To push Neo to its limit, one was to have enough anger, and the other was to have enough strength. In the original story, Midora and Toriko's continuous angry attacks hadn't pushed Neo to its limit. In the end, it was the White Demon's one strike that had pushed Acacia to his limit. Though Neo wasn't fully revived yet, for Acacia blocking Medora's attack was not a big problem. It was just that this angry emotion made him a bit uncomfortable. After all, Acacia's appetite now was Neo. Neo hated the taste of anger, and so did he. Facing Medora's attack, Acacia, who had come back to his senses, also immediately counterattacked. A large number of tentacles spread from his body. At this moment, Acacia no longer looked human. What a disgusting guy. It seems I can't use the hungry tongue against you. Seeing Acacia like this, Midora also felt a bit disgusted. He simply stopped using the hungry tongue and used his fists instead. Hungry blow. Hungry blow. One of Medora's attack moves integrated his hundreds of years of hunger into his fist. Besides having greater power, it could also make the opponent experience his hunger. And this hungry blow wasn't just one blow, it was a terrifying flurry of blows. Boom! A huge roar and vibration spread from the first continent. The entire earth was constantly trembling. It was clear just how ruthless Medora's punches were. This damn kid, he's always causing trouble for me. Grand knocking. Seeing that the entire first continent was about to be obliterated by Midora, Jiro immediately unleashed a grand knocking to stabilize it. He couldn't stop Medora's rampage, but at least the ripple effects wouldn't tear apart a whole continent. This might not be the human world, but it was still part of Earth. Jiro wasn't about to stand by and watch Midora destroy the entire first continent. With Jiro's one strike, the collapse of the first continent stopped. But Medora's heavy punches were still continuous. If it continued for too long, then Jiro's knocking effect would be broken. So, Jiro had to constantly use grand knocking. It was a good thing that his enemies were easy to deal with. The remaining blue nitro were quickly taken care of by him. To deal with these guys, Jiro didn't even need to bother with knocking. He just used raw strength to crush them. The power gap between them was simply too massive. So huge that brute force alone was more than enough. Midora is really making a scene. Ichiryu was at a loss, but he still had to evacuate the civilians first. He didn't need to worry about the fighting here, so he planned to get these people back to the human world. After all, they'd been kidnapped from various continents. Jiro couldn't send them back to their original homes, so the human world would have to do for now. After dropping these people off, Ichiryu also returned to the gourmet world. Now, there was only one battle in the gourmet world, and that was Neo versus Midora. Looks like Medora's attacks don't seem to be very effective. Watching Medora's hungry blows rain down relentlessly, Acacia kept taking serious damage, but he was healing incredibly fast. Meanwhile, a huge chunk of Medora's power was being devoured directly by Neo. In this kind of fight, it looked like Midora had the advantage, but once his strength got drained too much, Acacia would turn the tables. Neo's strongest ability is its devouring ability. Back then, even my supernova explosion was devoured by this guy. If your power can't completely surpass its limit, then there's no way to kill it. Don Slime spoke up. He'd fought Neo multiple times back in the day, and he'd come out on top in the end. He knew firsthand just how brutal Neo could be. Sure, he'd beaten it eventually, but it had been one brutal struggle. Yuki was well aware that Midora was currently beating the absolute hell out of Acacia. The commotion was impossible to ignore, the entire planet was shaking, and the colossal auras of their battle had spread across the globe. The human world, however, remained a sanctuary of calm, safely nestled within Granny Setsuno's protective dome. As for the 8 kings, they remained passive observers. Acacia's very existence was an affront to the natural order of their world. In the original story, they had united to confront him, knowing he was a harbinger of planetary destruction. But this time was different. Midora had Acacia completely pinned down. There was no need for them to intervene. Besides, with the Dragon King of the First Continent already dead at Yuki's hands, their forces were diminished. So, the remaining 8 kings watched from a distance, waiting to see how this monumental clash would end. If Midora won, their intervention would be unnecessary. If he lost, they would still make their move, though if Midora fell, their chances would be slim. As time ticked by, the gourmet solar eclipse finally began. A colossal presence erupted from the earth beneath Yuki's feet. The sheer force of it sent even the Wolf King Guinness leaping back, a startled growl rumbling in its chest. The Wolf King let out a sharp howl, its eyes fixed on the cracking earth. It could clearly sense the arrival of God. The gourmet solar eclipse had come, and God had matured. But something was different. God appeared once every few hundred years. Besides the times it was captured by the Blue Nitro, the Wolf King was always the first to deal with it. Guinness had witnessed the birth of God many times, but this was different. The aura was immense, far surpassing any previous incarnation. It was a power that completely eclipsed its own. That was why Guinness was on high alert. This time, God is a complete, fully matured being, born from a fully prepared Earth. The previous ones were all immature. Yuki explained. Guinness, I'll need you to keep an eye on this thing for me. Preparing God wasn't a problem for Yuki, but he needed to prevent any other creatures from trying to steal a bite. He entrusted Guinness with guard duty. Guinness agreed without a moment's hesitation. The reasons were simple. First, Yuki had a close relationship with Jiro, it was only natural to extend a favor to its child's friend. Second, and more importantly, it knew it was no match for this version of God. Its aura was too powerful. The Wolf King was not afraid of death, none of the 8 kings were. But it was not foolish. It recognized the overwhelming, unnatural power radiating from the newborn God. It knew, with absolute certainty, that it was outmatched. A king knows when it's outmatched. So, if Yuki was willing to take it on, that was for the best. If he failed, then Guinness would have no choice but to step in, even knowing it was a suicide mission. That wraps up this part of What If Fishing System in Food Wars World. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.